the best part of a session year. I enjoy being in session with great senators like your Senator Kevin Sparks. But I really enjoy after session coming around and telling the folks in every area what we accomplished that I think is really important to them. And with the help of Senator Sparks and so many others, I think this is probably the most conservative session we've ever had and the most productive in so many areas. So let me tick off a couple of big issues. Number one, property taxes. I've been fighting for that ever since I ran for office back in 2007. And when I became lieutenant governor, I was able to do some things I couldn't get done as a senator. And I had new senators come in like Senator Sparks and others who were dedicated to reducing property taxes. So here's what we did. If you're a senior and you're the average homeowner over 65, you will no longer pay school taxes, property school taxes ever again, as long as you live in your house. And how did we do that? We increased your homestead exemption to $200,000. To put this in perspective, 10 years ago, the homestead exemption was $15,000. We raised it to 25, we raised it to 40. These were all Senate initiatives that we passed. And then to 100 last year, you may recall. And now to seniors, it's $200,000. So that should remove all property school taxes for seniors for the average homeowner. If you're under 65, you're saying, what about me? Well, your homestead exemption is increased from $100,000 to $140,000. So let's just take a $250,000 average home in this general area in the rural part of the Panhandle. That means you take 140 from 250. You're now paying on $110,000. So your school taxes are going to go down about 50% from where they were several years ago. And so that you understand how this works, when we cut the property taxes, we're not taking away the money from the schools. We are paying for it. That's why it cost our budget $51 billion. We're spending $51 billion to write the check on your behalf if you're a senior or under 65 and you have a homestead. So we're sending that money back to the schools so they're not out. But we did more than that. In this session, we added $8.5 billion to public school funding. That's the biggest ever in one session, just for schools. That's on top of what we're doing for the property tax cuts. And we did something differently that Kevin knows about. For the first time ever, both parties came together and said, we're not going to fund public schools like we used to. In the past, we sent all the money to the superintendent and the administration, and they decided how to spend it. But we found out that, and we have a lot of great superintendents, but we found out across our 1,200 school districts or so in the state, a lot of that money wasn't getting to where it needed to be, which was in the hands of teachers. So if you're a teacher, your average salary 6 or 7 years ago in the state was $54,000. After this session, the average salary will be $69,000. And there was always a gap between rural teachers and urban suburban teachers, about $10,000. Urban suburban teachers were making on average more than rural teachers. We have dramatically closed that gap by giving rural teachers even more money this session. And then, so that was a bucket. Out of this $8.5 billion, a little over $4 billion went to teachers. Another bucket went to special needs children, which I've been involved in those nonprofits for 40 years, special needs children and those parents. So we put about $1 billion into special needs. We put another bucket, how about for all the other people that work in the school, the bus drivers, the cafeteria workers, the maintenance workers, and some of the infrastructure projects they need. So we create a bucket for that. And then we have the regular money that's still going to the superintendents, which is about $17,000 per child that they still can spend. But this other bucket of $8.5 billion, the legislature is saying, we're kind of directing you how we think you should spend that money based on what we see in our 1,200 school districts. On top of that, we're bringing the culture back to where I believe most Texans, particularly in the Panhandle and in West Texas, but all across Texas, believe in. We're getting the wokeness out of our schools, and we're putting our values back. So we passed Senate Bill 11 to put prayer back in public school. We don't compel anyone to pray, but you'll have private time to pray if you wish. And we're putting the 10 Commandments in every classroom. Now let me tell you how this works. The schools are required to do it, but we're not giving them an unfunded mandate. We're letting the communities provide it. So if you're a church, adopt a school. If you're a big church, adopt a few schools. A private business, an individual. If you'll provide a 16 by 20 inch framed 10 Commandments, easy to read, the schools are required to put them in the classrooms. And then there's school choice on top of that. There's been a lot of discussion over the years, because I've been the leader on school choice ever since I was an education chair back in 2013 when I was in the Senate. And that was that school choice will take money away from public education. It's just not true. And anyone who says it either doesn't know the facts or they just don't want to acknowledge the facts. We're spending $1 billion for school choice starting in the 2026 school year, $1 billion for 100,000 kids. That same year, we'll be spending $44 billion approximately for public education and 5.5 million kids. $1 billion against $44 billion, 100,000 against 5.5 million. Many in the education system said the same thing when homeschooling. We didn't have homeschooling always. So when homeschooling came around, they said, oh, that's going to be the end. What do parents know about homeschooling their children? Well, it's turned out they know a lot about it. And we have about 600,000 or more people homeschooling. It didn't interrupt public education. We have charter schools, and now we have school choice. We're always going to have 95% or so of all students in Texas going to public schools. And that's why it's the biggest part of our budget. The biggest part of our budget is public education. And today, we in the legislature, led by Republicans, are spending more on public education schools than ever before, about 50%, 51 or 52%. We'll see when the final dollars settle out. So big session on all types of school funding, from cutting your school property taxes for seniors, eliminating them, cutting them in half for everyone else, and all these investments. Law enforcement, border security. I said before President Trump was elected, and I was proud to be his campaign chair for the 3rd time in Texas, that the day one that he's elected to office, the border will be secured. Joe Biden said, well, I can't do this. I need Congress to act. I don't have the money. Between what Texas had been doing and what I knew President Trump would do, the border was secured on day one. And instead of 2 million coming in a year, this year will probably be somewhere maybe 200,000, maybe 100,000. I mean, they're coming now by the dozens, not by the hundreds or thousands every day. I think it'll be the lowest level ever. It could be very, very low. Right now, in the month of June, it's almost non-existent. People aren't coming. And Texas has invested $12 billion on border security, and we're hoping in this new congressional big, beautiful bill, part of that bill sends us our money back, because we should have never had to spend our money, but Joe Biden forced us to. Law enforcement, last session, and this session again, we put $350 million in for rural counties, which is about 235 of the 254 counties. We did that because, as I did my 133 city bus tour in rural Texas the last time I ran for office, I discovered we had some sheriffs out there making $35,000 a year or $41,000 a year, and deputies making in the 20s. There's no way you can keep people who are dedicated to law enforcement in rural Texas making that money. So now the minimum sheriff salary, which we funded again this year, is $75,000. Deputies are in the low 40s to mid 40s, and jailers high 30s to low 40s. So we're funding law enforcement because it's important that we have the best that we can have in rural Texas as we have anywhere else. And then I want to talk about infrastructure, and that's where I want to bring Kevin Sparks in. He's in the oil and gas business. Let's talk about what we did for natural gas plants, the $5 billion, and why that's important, that we need to compete with wind and solar.
Yeah, so obviously the grid is still a critical issue, and reliability is huge. And so we've got another $5 billion that's going to go towards gas-generated dispatchable power. And that's power that can come on within seconds. Wind and solar, obviously, are both intermittent power providers, and so it's why we know that it's critical that we incentivize dispatchable power.
And we've had, as you know, again, being in the business, it's been an uneven playing field. The federal government made all these subsidies for wind and solar and nothing for natural gas plants. And that's why in the last 15 years we've built very few natural gas plants, but it's all been wind and solar. Again, there's nothing wrong with it. It helps keep the air clean. It helps keep the cost down. But we've overbuilt, really, and we don't have enough dispatchable power to meet the needs that we have coming forth in power and for data centers and crypto mining, all of those things are going to be.
We have a lot of demand that's coming to Texas for more electricity, and the reality is that wind and solar just can't keep up. And so we've got to make sure that we're offsetting those federal subsidies so that we get good dispatchable power, reliable.
That's why, so over 2 sessions, we're investing $10 billion in that. In roads, we're spending more for roads than we ever have. When I became lieutenant governor in 2015, the budget was around $23 billion for TxDOT, who builds our roads, and now it's over $30 billion. And then water. I just came from Lubbock, where Senator Charles Perry worked with Senator Sparks on water. We know we have a need everywhere. West Texas has needs, so we put over $3 billion and a commitment to about $20 billion over the next couple of decades to build out water. I also want to talk about something else I'm really proud of. Today, you all broke ground on the new hospital, the psychiatric hospital. And this all started when he was campaigning for the Senate in 2022.
Right.
And we came here to Amarillo. We sat down with Judge Tanner from Potter County and all the deputy sheriffs.
There were probably 40 elected officials
Yeah.
in that room
Yeah.
that day.
And so at the end, we wanted to hear from them. And so Judge Tanner said, we need a psychiatric hospital. We don't have one. And what happens is, if you arrest someone, if sheriff's deputy arrests someone who has obviously mental health issues, they might have to drive 2 or 3 hours. They might have to go to Wichita Falls to find a place to take them. And sometimes they drive all that way, they can't take them, they come back. Well, that's a deputy you've lost for 24 or 48 hours. So I said to the judge, I said, Judge, we're actually in the process of building 5 in East and Central Texas. And now that you've asked for one, I think we'll create a plan to build them in West Texas and in the Panhandle. So we put $2.5 billion into the budget. It was a plan that my staff and I worked on, worked with the members out here, worked with the judge. I knew exactly what she needed. So I think it's going to be a 75-bed hospital.
That's right.
And the state of Texas is paying for that, and I'm really excited. And that's what happens. It's really important to communicate. And so when I travel around, people say, why are you traveling around? Had I not been to Amarillo in February of 22, and had I not asked the question, is there anything you need? If she hadn't said that, I don't know if we would have built here or not, because we, in the state legislature, in 254 counties and 30 million people, we can't read people's minds of what they need in all their communities. Of course, the senators tell us and the reps tell us, so I'm really proud that started today.
But to your credit, I mean, you committed at that meeting with all of those officials there that we're gonna make this happen in Amarillo. And here we are just a couple of years later, and we're breaking ground. Hopefully we'll be treating patients within 2 years.
Yeah, it's critical, just critical needs. I'll take some questions now. Yes, sir.
Yes, regarding your THC ban, what
Yes.
do you say to people who are concerned this ban will lead to an increase in fentanyl deaths?
The fentanyl deaths are caused by the Chinese and the drug cartels, okay? And THC has nothing to do eliminating those or reducing those. Look, here's the truth about THC. It's illegal to sell pot in America by the federal government. Charles Perry, senator from the Lubbock area, passed a hemp bill in 2019 or 21. And he warned at the time, if you take advantage of this bill and try to sell products that are poison and high and intoxicating THC, we will eliminate that from happening. And what happened? Let me tell you how bad it is. And I think someone over here from some group with cannabis, I don't know if supporters, or, pardon? Okay, the Academy. Let's be very clear. In 3 to 4 years, the last 3 years, we have seen 8,000 to 9,000 smoke and vape shops open up in Texas. 8 to 9,000. Now, to put that in perspective, we only have 1,100 McDonald's in Texas. So 8 times as many smoke shops as McDonald's. The testimony on the THC that they're selling, which is unregulated and sky high in many cases, has been just horrendous. We had a mother that came in and her 22-year-old son, after buying products in a smoke shop and getting hooked on this high-potent THC, walked out in front of a train in El Paso. We had a student this February in Houston who ate some gummies and came home and shot his mother 3 times. This past weekend, they sent 7 graduating students from a school district in Dallas-Fort Worth area because someone had brought them gummies they bought in a smoke shop that sent 7 of them to the hospital. This is poisonous. It's unregulated. The products are made to look like they'd be attractive to kids and young adults, and they've succeeded. They built a big business, a big business selling poison, unregulated, intoxicating levels of THC all over this state. And we did our investigations, and what we found out, these aren't small business people. There are exceptions. There may be an exception here. There may be some. But this was an organized effort by synthetic cannabis dealers from China, from Mexico, from California, from Colorado, that came in and opened 8,000 to 9,000 shops. Think about this. You think in the last 3 years, just a regular couple, small business people woke up one morning and say, you know what, let's go into the THC business. I'll find a supplier, I'll lease a store, I'll get the products, and that doesn't happen. Not when all the products came in almost overnight, all the same products in every store, all the store footprints looked the same, and all the leases were signed. This was using a loophole in the hemp bill that Charles Perry warned everyone about. If you do this, we'll ban it. So Delta 8, Delta 10, that's what happened. And with the testimony we had from the parents and then from law enforcement, every law enforcement agency in the state said we have to ban it. The police chief in Tomball, Texas said this is nothing but selling drugs on the open market in stores under the guise that it's legal, under the guise it's permitted. No one gave them the permission to do that. They created this on their own. This is a real deal impacting real lives. The number of THC poison calls are up 500% now to our poison center. So we have to ban it, and to address it, we've expanded the biggest teacup program, we think, in the United States. Teacup stands for Texas Compassionate Use Program. It's been very small, mainly because the stores all opened up and put the licensees almost out of business. So we're expanding from 3 licenses to 15. They can open up satellite locations. And this is where you get THC that's prescribed by a doctor at low levels to help you, whether you have PTSD, whether you have cancer, whether you are a chronic pain person. That's what we're doing to counterbalance it. But let's make no mistake. These stores are selling poison to our school-age children, and that's the reason more than half of these stores have all opened 1,000 feet to 2,000 feet from our schools. So when I hear this, well, we're small business, oh, we're going to lose up. This industry didn't even exist 3 or 4 years ago. And they come into our neighborhoods, and you see it. Anybody watching knows. There's smoke and vape shops everywhere. Like I said, 8,000 to 9,000. We don't even know how many total there are. We haven't been able to count them all. So that's the whole story on that. Next question.
I got a question on the Ten Commandments display.
Yes, sir.
It seems to me and to many people that this is sort of establishing and prioritizing one religion over another. And I know the argument is it's a historical document.
It is.
But why not the Bill of Rights? Why not the Texas Constitution? Why not these other documents over a document that states you only can worship one God, you'll have to be, cannot work on Sunday. Stuff that really does not apply to today's society as far as everybody's religion, maybe your religion, but what would you say to the people that say that's kind of violating the Establishment Clause and also promoting one religion over another?
It's not violating one over the other. By the way, we have the 10 Commandments on our Capitol grounds. And the verbiage that you use in these 10 Commandments that you donate to your school, it's the same verbiage the Supreme Court's already supported. This nation was founded on Judeo-Christian principles. Doesn't mean everyone is a Protestant or a Catholic or following the Jewish faith. There are all kinds of faith in America, but we are primarily a nation built on the Word of God. The 10 Commandments were really the foundation for Western culture. And so all we're doing is we're not proselytizing anyone. We're not telling anyone you have to believe this. We're saying these are the foundation principles that our Western civilization and our country was built upon. That's all. Next question. Anybody else? I know we're running out of time. Give me the hi-ho. Yes.
Can you give us a statement about a couple of weeks ago, the teacher that accidentally picked up the Mountain Dew and gave it to her student that was hard Mountain Dew from the alcohol company, and it looked like regular Mountain Dew?
I don't know anything about that story. Well, we have 365,000 teachers, and we have 9,000 campuses. Well, I don't see every story on the news, but look, there are products out there that can harm other people, and the Teacup program is designed for people who are truly in need of lower level THC. Look, we have one chronic pain physician, he's an anesthesiologist, Tom Alderson, in the Texas House, and he said, look, THC in the right levels prescribed by doctors can be effective for chronic pain and PTSD and others. But this poison that we're selling in these stores, no one knows what it is. It's doing more harm to people's health and causing cases and paranoia, schizophrenia. I had a press conference. Kevin was there. I laid all the products out. I said, does anyone want to try these? And no one in the media wanted to try them because you don't know what's in them. So it could be dangerous. I got to go to my next stop. Thank you all. You've been very great turnout, and I really appreciate your good questions. And I like the South Pools hat. So I like that. I like the new version. All right. We'll see you all.